So we are here for the 2026 Monday, April 6th Division 1 softball scores for the day. So there's not a ton of games, but there's a few games. We had Arizona with a doubleheader on Sunday on Easter and a single game Monday. Number 13 Arizona defeated Iowa State in an early contest, 12-10. Arizona won the series 2-1. Number 6 Arkansas played an SEC series where it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and they do it for Mic'd Up Monday on SC Network, where you play a game on Monday, and it's kind of like where SEC Network does it for college or women's college basketball on Mondays. It's kind of like one of those days where like there's not a whole lot of sports on. It's kind of promoting giving like the SEC like an exclusive window for like college softball, because college softball fans will watch. Women's college basketball fans will watch. Especially when there's like nothing, like that's the only game on. It brings like a lot of eyes onto that specific game. Not gonna be as many as people watching like the NCAA tournament or top teams, but if they're if they're top teams or even just any matchup in general, like women's college basketball, like sport, like college softball, people love that, and people will or want like that, and just look for any game out there, watch, a lot of people, will, not everyone, but a lot of people will, especially knowing that's a power conference team, 2 power conference teams. Yeah, bring the attention to a lot of eyes. Yeah, Lamar brings eyes to me because, like, I did have women's college basketball. I'm doing that with college softball, So, definitely. And then we have the Big 12 conference. We have Lamar out of the Southland defeated Baylor out of the Big 12, 10-8. Baylor did a Tuesday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as you can see here. Yep, they did a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, and then they played a Monday series. And then they have a Wednesday game. A couple Wednesday games. Now they have a Wednesday game in the Sioux series against Kansas. And then they play Texas A&M, a series against Utah. Texas State, Oklahoma State, and then Texas Tech. So they ended on some tough series. Then we have Northwestern Ohio, a non-Division I school, took on Detroit Mercy, a Division I team. Detroit Mercy won Game 1 of the doubleheader, 3-1. There was going to be a second game of the doubleheader. However, that was canceled due to Northwestern Ohio needing to fly back. However, they traveled here before class tomorrow. And they don't have like a hotel room booked. They would it would be like a late night for them. And even if they did get an exemption, for class, a little bit because of the late time, it would just be like way too late just for anyone, Even if you're a professional, player, even if this was professional teams, it'd still be just ridiculously late, Then we have Southern Illinois with a 13-3 win over Indiana State. Southern Illinois sweeps Indiana State in that series. And then the series between Omaha and North Dakota, that was postponed. Game 3 was postponed due to weather out there in North Dakota. And just up in that North Dakota area, there's in cold, some snow. Not the best conditions to play a softball game. So they end up just like the series in North Dakota State with St. Thomas, and North Dakota State was postponed this week. It was postponed like earlier in the week, like late last week. Late like Friday, Saturday. Like I believe it was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they postponed that. They have 3 against Omaha. And I wonder if the game against non-division one Mount Mary is going to get postponed. I wonder. It could not. It could play it, but I wonder if that one's going to get postponed as well because all 3 against Omaha got postponed. But Omaha just could not travel and said, we're not traveling, And they made a mutual agreement not to cancel, just to not play the games and just, mutually cancel the games. It says postponed, but it's like a mutual cancellation, essentially. Maybe I'll play them during the week, maybe. With North Dakota having games, every week, on Tuesday, and Omaha having a couple of Tuesday games, not this week and not the next week, but 2 weeks time, the 21st, 28th. So it's probably just gonna be a mutual cancellation. And then Utah Tech out of the Western Athletic Conference defeats San Diego out of the West Coast Conference 11-9. That was a high-scoring game in the beginning, but later in that game, it just ended up becoming like a defensive game, like a pitching duel. But it's kind of interesting how 2 games can turn on them, Oh, and also I forgot to mention that the Lamar Baylor game is a game that Lamar had 10 innings, and then Lamar and Baylor. There is a limit on how many innings they were going to play. They were going to play 10 innings only. If it went past 10 innings, like either play it till a certain time at night or just play so many innings. And when that ends, when that inning ends, when 10 innings are, when they went to 10 innings, when that was up, they're going to end at a tie. And that's how it ended. And, it didn't end like that because Lamar won in 9. But interesting to know. Even though Lamar is out of Texas, Texas, they're still traveling back and forth. They're still traveling that game on bus, most likely. Therefore, they need to. Therefore, they do want to travel back the same day, And, and I don't blame them, get back to class, and stuff. In state, it makes no sense renting a hotel room. You're not, playing, Thursday. You're not playing, back-to-back days,